The biggest threat to your marriage is not your spouse. It's the way you think about your spouse and your marriage. And that is why today we will be talking about the O from my Hope Conquers Marriage Enrichment signature series, Obscured Thinking, found in my book, Conquering Distress for a Better Marriage, Transformation that Produces Lasting Change. So today we will be talking about obscured thinking, the silent distortion that clouds your perception, that fuels many conflicts, and quietly erodes intimacy. And you know what? If this is left unchecked, it can turn love into suspicion, partnership into opposition, and communication into combat. But here's the good news: you can actually renew your thinking and restore clarity, connection, and peace in your marriage. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Dr. Delroy Fredericks of Hope Conquers Marriage Enrichment, and I'm happy that you are continuing this series with me. Now, this particular video is for couples who are tired of miscommunication, emotional distance, and reoccurring conflicts, and who are actually ready to break the cycle. If you're ready to break the cycle, just type ready in the comment section. So what is obscured thinking? Well, the simplest way to put it is when your perception of your spouse becomes distorted by internal filters. What do I mean? Well, your internal filters could be past wounds. It could be hurts. It could be maybe fear. It could be even pride or insecurity, or it could just be some unresolved conflicts. And it's not really reality. It's the interpretation disguised as reality. And this is important that you're able to understand. So here's how it shows up. You assume a negative intent about your spouse. Oh, they did this on purpose. Or you overgeneralize things when it happens. You always do this. You never do this. Or you personalize everything. Ah, he's doing this thing again. She's doing this thing again. This is about me. Or this is a big one. You are a professional mind reader. I know what they were thinking. I know what you were thinking. Does this resonate with anyone? Type songs like me in the comment section if you're brave enough to do that. But it will break the cycle, I promise you. So, in essence, obscure thinking replaces truth with a narrative. And those narratives aren't often accurate. And here's the danger of that. You don't respond to your spouse based on what they did. You start to respond to the story and the narratives you created about them. This is so powerful. This is the breakthrough that many couples start to get when they start to understand. And I broke this down in our last live workshop that we did, how to level up your marriage. I broke this down. So it's important that you understand that this is the root cause of many of the issues. But let's go a little bit deeper. Because obscure thinking doesn't just come out of nowhere. It has deep roots. Sometimes it could be emotional wounds from past hurts, whether from your spouse. We can even go way back to your childhood. It creates like a defensive lens. You start interpreting present actions through your past pains. Yes, when this particular event happened and it caused you pain, if something even similar is happening with a different scenario, a different setup, you continue to interpret that the same way. Another deep root cause is unchecked thoughts. You don't challenge your thoughts. Everything you think, you just let it out. You just let it come out. You just let it come out and you just let it come out and you just believe everything you think. Little did you know that beliefs, if you continue to believe something long enough, it will shape your behavior. If you're getting this, can you type getting this in the comment section? Another root cause is communication breakdown. We've been going back and forth, not understanding each other for so long that we stop clarifying things and we just start assuming things. And distortion, obscure thinking, fills in the gap as soon as you start this cycle of assumption. And the next reason, for those of us who are believers, is spiritual disconnect. Without grounding your mind in truth, which is the word of God, your thoughts default to fear. And we know God has not given us a spirit of fear. Your thoughts default to flesh. The Bible says, even though you are in this world, you're not of this world. And then it says, walk in the spirit or walk in the light because you are of the light. You've been transformed. And also, negativity. If there's so much negativity in your thoughts, that's why the Bible is clear. It says, think on these things, whatever is true, whatever is good, whatever is lovely, whatever is pure, whatever is of a good report when it comes to your spouse. And that's an exercise that we go through deep in this book that I would encourage you to do. So what's the impact of obscure thinking? Well, there's going to be frequent misunderstandings. There's going to be escalated conflicts. Have you ever been in a place like, honey, how did we get to this point? We're going back and forth over a simple question I asked. You're going to get to that place of emotional distance, of a loss of trust. Because if the thinking is off, everything else is going to be off in your marriage. Are you going to just start fights? You are just going to start fights and fighting battles that aren't actually real. One spouse may say something that's neutral. The other spouse hears something offensive. And now you're in a full-blown argument over a misinterpretation because of your obscured thinking. And this is how distress multiplies in your marriage. So how can you conquer distress for a better marriage? How can you experience transformation that produces lasting change? So here's a quick shift and a quick solution to help you in this video. You're going to have to figure out a way and learn how to capture and challenge your thoughts. And you can do it this way. Is this thought true? When the thought comes, instead of just reacting or responding or saying something as soon as you get the thought, you're going to say, is this thought true? Do I have evidence? Because sometimes there is no evidence to what these obscured thoughts are. And you're going to ask this question. So 3 questions. Is this thought true? Do I have evidence? And am I assuming or verifying? Because this is big. If you go into the assumption phase, you're going to go down the rabbit hole and you're going to continue the obscured thinking. But if you are honestly verifying or clarifying, that makes a difference because you have the power. Type power if you believe you have the power. You have the power to not accept every thought that comes to you. You have the power to recognize if a thought is true. And some thoughts just need to be interrogated. And it's in that interrogation mode that you start to overcome the cycle and you start to break the negative cycle of obscured thinking. The next thing you'll have to do is you're going to have to slow down your emotional reaction. You know, we teach couples different strategies in terms of how you can pause before you respond. You're going to have to create space between, the first thought and your response. This is one quick way that we teach couples. You can pause, reflect, then respond. That's it. That's the 3 steps. You get the thought, you just pause for a moment. Don't just respond. You do the reflection. The reflection is the 3 questions that I just said. That's going to give you ample time to do a couple of things, to figure out if this thought is true, to figure out if you have evidence, and to figure out, am I going to assume or just, when I respond now, do I respond with assumption or is it going to be a response for clarification or for verification? That sounds like a lot going on in that pause, but I guarantee you, when you start to see the results of the pause and you start to see how your spouse is responding now because of that pause, you are going to commit to doing this. So we capture and challenge the thought. We slow down your emotional reaction. And then we truly seek for clarity. Instead of assuming, just ask your spouse. And this is probably the biggest takeaway from this video is this question. Ask your spouse this question, honey, or however you address your spouse. Help me understand what you meant based on what you just said. That's it. This is the single most important question you can ask that can change the direction of the whole situation that you might be in. Because when you seek for clarity, this really interrupts the negative cycle. Because what I've come to understand, even in my own marriage, is that clarity quickly dismantles distortion. Type clarity in the comment section if you got this. Clarity, clarity, clarity. And number 4, you are going to have to practice intentional positive interpretation because you've been in a negative cycle for so long. You've been in a negative cycle for so long in terms of the way that you would have interpreted these thoughts. So you're going to have to start a new practice, a new intention on how you can practice positive interpretation. You're going to have to train your mind to give your spouse the benefit of the doubt. And one of the things that we will be doing in our upcoming live training for the Hope Conquers Marriage Enrichment Institute, I'm going to be teaching couples how to rewire their brains. It sounds scientific, but what I've been trying to do recently in my teachings is to show a connection, not only from the spiritual to even the scientific way that sometimes our brains function. So I think this training would be a great training for you to be a part of. And to do that, check the link for how you can activate your free trial to explore the Hope Conquers Marriage Enrichment Institute and be a part of our monthly live trainings. Always good to see you on the inside. But let me get back to this. If you are going to practice to intentionally train your mind to give your spouse the benefit of the doubt, this doesn't mean you ignoring stuff. I got to make sure I clear this up. It means you're just not defaulting to negativity because that's why you're in the season you're in, because your default was negativity. It was distorted thinking. We're going to change that. And to change anything, it's going to require a renewing of your mind, not once a week, daily. Your thinking has to be retrained, and you're going to have to be able to feed your mind with what is true, not just your emotions. You're going to have to replace distorted narratives with healthy perspectives. And you're going to have to strengthen your emotional and spiritual awareness and recognize when emotions are influencing your perception. Not every feeling you need to act on. And that is so important. Now, here's a quick action step as we're coming down to the end of this video. I want you to do what is called a thought audit. And after you finish this video, the next time you get a negative thinking, or if you are currently thinking some negative things about your spouse, I need you to write it down, write it down, write it down. Write down a negative thought, just one. Come on, don't fill the page. Just one. One negative thought about your spouse. And I want you to identify the distortion. What do I mean? See if there is any area where you exaggerated this thought, where you made a narrative about this thought that painted such a negative picture of your spouse that it truly made your vision clouded about that situation about your spouse. And when you do that, I want you to be honest and say, could I replace this thought with a balanced, truthful perspective? Even if it includes giving your spouse the benefit of the doubt, instead of saying, definitely, I know he wanted to hurt me. Just say, I wonder what he was thinking because you're trying to gain clarity. And this is powerful. This is what's going to make a difference when you start to think in forms of clarification as opposed to accusation. I wonder what they were thinking. I wonder, and when you go into I wonder, it shifts and gives you that pause. Pause enough so that when you have that conversation with your spouse, you can ask the powerful question we discussed. Help me understand what you meant. Help me understand what you were thinking. Now, if you do this consistently, you will start to rewire your thinking patterns. Because the matter of the fact is, healthy marriages aren't built on perfect people. None of us are perfect. They're built on clear thinking. And when you learn to conquer your distorted thoughts, you reduce conflict, you increase understanding, and you create space for deeper connection. So if this video resonates with you, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and share it with another couple who needs this. And remember, transformation in your marriage starts with transformation in your mind. So I want you to stay with me, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video. Goodbye for now.